For the word of the week this week, we're looking at a virtue list in James chapter 3, verse 17. In James 3, 13 through 18, we get a stark contrast between earthly and heavenly wisdom, and the contrast is laid out in a short vice list and a virtue list that demonstrates what people who are engaged in the wisdom from above look like. So chapter 3 begins with a warning about not being in a hurry to become a teacher, because teachers face a greater judgment. You're taking on a great responsibility, and as such, there's greater judgment. Then there's a lengthy section about the dangers of the tongue. Like, you can really create that little tiny tongue can be the spark that creates a huge fire. You can cause a lot of damage with words. And let me ask you this: what is teaching if not talking? Right? So he starts by saying, be careful about desiring to be a teacher. Teachers face a greater judgment. Then a lot of stuff about the dangers of talk and the damage you can do with talk. And then we get to this wisdom section in verses 13 through 18. Who is wise? And we're told you'll know who is wise based on their conduct. You'll be able to see it in how they conduct themselves. So let's take a quick look. This is 13 and 14 from James chapter 3 from the ESV. Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. If we jump back to the notion about being a teacher, does it sound like you'd be a good teacher if you were filled with bitter jealousy and selfish ambition? Probably not, right? Let's look at verses 15 and 16. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. So he tells us plainly, jealousy and selfish ambition are the opposite of the wisdom from above. They are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic, and they bring about disorder and every vile practice. Then we get to the good stuff, to the virtue list in verse 17. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. So he gives us very specific characteristics of the wisdom from above and what it would look like. And before we dissect that virtue list, I want to suggest to you that as we do so, think about the words that he chose in the context of a person being a good teacher, a wise teacher that conducts him or herself with the virtues of wisdom that comes from above compared to the vices that are described in that earthly list. So let's dig in and take a look at that. Hede anothen Sophia, but the wisdom from above, anothen is above, so from above, Sophia, wisdom. Proton, first, men on the one hand, hagne estin, is pure. Hagne comes from hagnos, it's a form of hagnos, and that means morally pure in the sense of innocence or chastity. In other words, this is a person who is keeping him or herself away from impurity. So what does the wisdom from above look like? It looks like actively attempting to keep yourself away from impurity. The next part says, apeta erenike. Apeta is then, so in other words, next. So first and foremost, on the one hand, pure. The wisdom from above is pure, hagne. The next thing is erenike. Erenike is from erenikos. It's an adjective, and it means peaceable, not prone to conflict. So remember, eirene, peace, in the Koine context, is free from conflict. If you're at peace, it means you're not in conflict with anyone. So we're told that the next thing after this innocence and chastity, this pursuit of innocence and chastity as opposed to impurity, the next thing is to be someone who is prone to peace, someone who is not given to conflict. What's the next one that he gives us? Epiekes, considerate, gentle, or yielding. This is interesting because it's in contrast with rigidity, and it's about a person in a place of power or authority who chooses not to abuse that power. It's frequently used about royalty, when royalty acts in a noble way rather than in sort of a selfish and self-important way, and says, even though I have the authority to act in a particular way, I'm going to be more yielding, more gentle, and decide to not abuse my position. That sounds like a characteristic of a good teacher, doesn't it? The next word is eupathes. Eupathes is obedient or compliant, but it also means to be open to reason. In other words, a person who is prepared to yield to new information or to let the facts change their mind, right? So not so stubborn, not so sure of oneself that when confronted with new information, they won't adopt it because that would mean that they had been wrong. Isn't that a fantastic quality for someone? When you encounter new or better information that you realize is superior to the information that you had previously held, you're ready to accept it. You're ready to yield to it, to be obedient to the facts rather than to your previously held position. The next up is meste, full of heleus kai karpon agathon, mercy and good fruits. So a person who is full of mercy and good fruits, that's a part of the wisdom from above. When you see somebody who is not eaten up with needing to get even, but rather are prepared to dispense mercy, to show kindness and let someone off, and who is full of good fruits, good things that are beneficial to others. Beautiful stuff. Our last two in the virtue list, adiakritos, which means to be impartial or unshakable of mind. This is an alpha privative, non-judging. So someone who is not subject to pressure. So when I'm confronted with information or with someone's position, am I swayed by who they are? Am I swayed against them by who they are or for them by who they are? Or is my allegiance to the truth and to the facts? And so being an unjudging person is not being persuadable by persons or parties or positions. And that's pretty extraordinary. Not subject to that kind of outside pressure. The truth is the truth no matter who is against it, and the truth is the truth no matter who is for it. And then finally, anupokritos, from hypokrites. This is another alpha privative, someone who is sincere in that they are not acting. Not putting on an act, but actually representing the real them in what they have to say. Now let's take a quick look at verse 18 in English. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So those who teach the gospel are technically peacemakers. How so? Because the gospel is introducing reconciliation atonement of people who are in conflict with God and bringing them into a place of peace. So you had enmity with God, you were in conflict with God due to sin, but the gospel brings you into a place of peace with God through a righteousness that comes from above, right? This is all heavily Pauline theology that I'm describing. And as a result, you've been reconciled, and there's a harvest of righteousness for those who sow peace, who live by the wisdom from above, who, if they had the nerve to go against James's counsel and go ahead and become teachers, but not teachers with dangerous talk that do damage, not that vile, demonic, selfish, jealous kind of stuff. Rather, the wisdom from above with all those elements in that magnificent virtue list, they will sow peace and reap righteousness. They will take people from being in conflict with God to a place of being at peace with God through the righteousness that they receive through the gospel of Christ. Pretty amazing and astonishing stuff. If you do these things, if you pursue the wisdom that comes from above and not jealousy and self-importance, you will sow peace and reap righteousness. That's my 2 cents on the virtue list of James 3:17. I think it really supports the notion, well, that teaching is risky because it comes with greater judgment. But if you pursue it with the wisdom that comes from above, it can be a blessing to those around you. You will sow peace and reap righteousness. Great stuff. Hope that was good for you. Take a look at the vice list that precedes there and the virtue list, and contemplate the wisdom that comes from above. That's our word of the week is extensive this week. It's the entire virtue list, and hope that was good for you. If it was, you know the things to do. And until next time, Charis Kairini Humin, grace and peace to you.